Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is a rant that, in all honesty, I wish I was not doing right now because I desperately wanted this film to be good. I wanted this movie to pan out. I wanted to like this as much as the other fans. I wanted to see this as a return to form for a franchise that I love and I adore so much. But I would be lying to myself and to you if I said that it was a return to form, if I said that it was a good movie. Because Ghostbusters Afterlife is not any of those things. It's not a full return to form. It's not a good movie. It's not a total fucking piece of shit. It's not the worst film of the year. It's not one of the worst films that I've ever seen. But what it is easily the most disappointing film that I've seen in 2021. And what's crazy is I didn't think it was going to feel that way initially because I saw this in IMAX. I actually saw this in opening weekend. I saw this in IMAX. It was the first film that I saw post-pandemic. It's a movie that actually made me cry. I'm going to be honest. I got tricked. I got duped. The screenwriters manipulated my emotions like a puppet master. And because of that, because it touched upon a part of my brain during a time in my life where I was more vulnerable to that kind of thing, I looked at the emotional response and saw that as a positive in the film's favor instead of viewing it as just an emotional response. And when I thought about the film more and I really broke it down, there were just so many things that I didn't like. And the things that I didn't like wound up outweighing the things that I did like about the movie. So I can't really sit here and say that I liked the film overall or that I thought it was a good movie. Because if you've got so many elements that don't work or you are indifferent about, and like a very paltry handful of elements that were decent or good, well, then you've got something that's not good. I'm not going to let nostalgia cloud my judgment here. I'm not. As much as I love Ghostbusters, as much nostalgia as I have for the original Ghostbusters and for that franchise and for a lot of things, I'm not going to give this a pass just because it tried to be a more respectful entry in the series. Just because it tried to have more heart and soul put into it than the 2016 film. Because that's the bare fucking minimum. Ghostbusters is a franchise that I personally expect more of. Just like I do with a lot of other franchises that I genuinely appreciate and love. I expect more from it than the bare minimum. If you are going to provide a new entry in a franchise, then I expect some semblance of a new spin on old ideas or new things to throw into the mix for the franchise. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, but at least you tried to take things into a different direction. That's how I felt about Halloween Kills. That's why I actually like that film more than Afterlife, because I feel that it did try to do some new things. Didn't necessarily completely work out, but at least it did try to do a little bit more than this film. This provides the bare minimum in so many different ways, and then on top of that, it just provides the same fucking shit. And I'm sorry if I spat on the camera, it's because it does make me spitting mad that this fucking formula that was made popular by Jurassic World making over $1 billion fucking dollars in the box office is still successful. This lazy garbage formula of taking a beloved, well-known franchise and just throwing in a lot of callbacks, Easter eggs, and moments of nostalgia porn, and very little that is new, different, or unique, and calling it a day is something that is still successful. It's something that studios are still going to keep doing because films like Afterlife make over $100 million domestically in the United States. And more than that worldwide. It's the same formula that The Force Awakens used, that tricked me when I saw it in the theater as well, but then I broke it down and I thought about it some more, and then I was like, wait a minute, this film honestly kind of sucks. And then the same thing happened with Afterlife. I've seen all three of those films in the theater, in IMAX. I saw Jurassic World in IMAX. I was kind of indifferent, kind of on it. After I saw it in the theater, thought about it some more, and then I was like, I don't like this movie. And same thing happened with The Force Awakens and now Afterlife. Stop using this fucking formula. Stop reheating old leftovers and feeding it to the masses. You're gonna give people diarrhea. I don't think people want diarrhea. Or maybe they do. Maybe they like the feeling of liquid shit dribbling out of their fucking asses because that's what keeps fucking happening. And I admit it, yes, I fell for it. But you know what? After Afterlife, never again. Never fucking again. I will just wait till it comes out on streaming or video. I am not going to support this bullshit anymore. I mean, come the fuck on already, Hollywood. So I know it's like 8 minutes in, pretty much, and I haven't really gotten to the review yet. But I'm sorry. I got a lot to unpack. I got a lot to get out of my basement, so to speak. And that's why it's taken a little bit for me to build up. But trust me, it will be worth it. So Ghostbusters Afterlife is helmed by Jason Reitman, who is the son of Ivan Reitman. And he's also the kid in Ghostbusters 2 who talks about how his dad says that the Ghostbusters were full of crap. And that's ironic because Jason Reitman directed a film that is loaded with crap. With crappy writing, with crappy set pieces, and with a lot of other smelly shit. So it's pretty funny that he was in that cameo in Ghostbusters 2. My dad says you're full of crap. And then he goes on and directs Ghostbusters Afterlife. I will say this. Jason Reitman's direction is not terrible. I wouldn't even say his direction overall is crap. What I will say is that his direction is inconsistent. Jason Reitman is a director who clearly is a guy who was more in his element with serious dramas or dark comedies. He's not in his element with a big blockbuster film. Similar to Paul Feig, where he wasn't in his element with the 2016 reboot, I feel the same way with Jason Reitman here. Although I think he ultimately did a better job than Paul Feig, but it's the same kind of out of their comfort zone result. And the comedy here is also a pretty big mess, but I don't know if that's 100% due to Jason Reitman's direction. But I do feel that Jason Reitman is to blame for a lot of the bigger set pieces feeling so small, just coming across so weak and limp. And other than the one Ecto 1 chase sequence where Phoebe and the Ghostbusters kids are going around trying to catch a ghost, to catch a Muncher, a lot of these big sequences didn't have the epic feel to them in terms of the size, the scope, and the pacing that was present in Ghostbusters, the 1984 film, or parts of the sequel in 1989. And I think that's because Jason Reitman is just not really a guy who's that adept or that good at that kind of directing. And that's why when the film is focusing on more smaller moments, when the directing is zeroing in on more serious dramatic scenes, the film is honestly at its most consistent visually and with the direction overall, because that's what he knows, that's his bread and butter. But when it comes to the bigger moments of spectacle, the film tends to fall pretty flat. And I think that is in large part due to Jason Reitman. I just don't think he was really that well versed or really that capable of handling that kind of direction and those kind of moments. The direction by Jason Reitman has its flaws. It has moments where it shines, but there's a lot of moments where it falls flat. But if I were to take my PKA meter and take a look and take a deeper dive into why this film isn't good and why this film doesn't work, the readings would point to the script by Gil Keenan and Jason Reitman. And it's for a multitude of different factors and reasons. So, the first one is the foundation. It's a flimsy foundation to start with. It's brittle, and it's built on a bad idea. Kid Ghostbusters is a stupid fucking idea. It's a bad idea. It was a bad idea when Q5 took over and threw kids in the real Ghostbusters cartoon. And it's a bad idea here in 2021. And for years from now, it will continue to be a bad idea. Because it's not something that you can actually get behind. It's not believable, for one. And I understand that this is not meant to be realistic. But you just cannot for 1 second buy that kids this young can walk around with these proton packs without falling flat on their fucking faces, let alone buying them, doing all this stuff to save the world. You don't buy it. Also, at the same time, unlike the Ghostbusters, the original Ghostbusters, Phoebe is really the only one that has any knowledge to be able to work with this technology and to do anything to fight or trap ghosts. No one else here has any experience in the paranormal. And no experience with science either. You've got a lot of members of this team that honestly come across like lame ducks. Or lame asses. Because lame ducks is just putting it lightly. So, you don't buy them fighting a supernatural threat. It's comical. And then on top of that, the way that these characters are written, other than Phoebe, which is a character that ultimately I do like. I like Phoebe. I think the screenwriters did a good job making you care for this character and root for her. But it did a bad job making her charismatic. It did a bad job making her really that memorable. And it did a bad job really providing her with more depth. Even though there's all these different conflicts she's dealing with throughout the film, it never really felt like there was a lot there. Because there was a lot of moments where it felt like she was getting over a lot of these things too easily. Like how she was able to just fix the proton pack, put it on, and start blasting ghosts. Just felt like it was too quick, too easy. And then on top of that, you definitely can tell that they're trying to make her into some kind of Egon archetype or something, trying to take Egon and then have elements of his character and just shove it in there with her. And so there's just a lot of things that happen with this character writing wise, where at the end of the day, the character is ultimately the strongest one out of the new cast, but it's still a character that, in comparison to Egon, Stans, Venkman, and Zeddemore, just doesn't even hold a candle to any of them. I mean, she doesn't even hold a candle to Kylie in the Extreme Ghostbusters cartoon. So, that's a problem. So you built the foundation on brittle wood. Wood that might as well be ancient or termite infested or whatever. It's not strong enough to hold up much weight at all. And so the film collapses. It collapses under that weight because the foundation is so flimsy. It's a bad idea with Kid Ghostbusters. It's not believable. I mean, it even causes the climax to essentially need the old Ghostbusters to come back because there's no other fucking way that any of the conflicts and any of the issues with Gozer or the Terror Dogs is ever going to be resolved with just the Kid Ghostbusters. They might as well have just been standing there with their thumbs up their asses. At least any of the other Ghostbusters other than Phoebe. So, dumb idea with Kid Ghostbusters. And the writing for these new Kid Ghostbusters is substandard. Because other than Phoebe, these characters are totally, completely paper thin, bland as fucking cardboard, or they're annoying. I mean, you've got the Stranger Things kid, Finn Wolfhard, who, his character, Trevor, a lot of ways is just there to drive the ectomobile. He's just there to be a chauffeur. And you have Podcast, who is one of the worst characters I've seen in a film this year, because I hated every scene this kid was in, and I don't necessarily blame the kid actor, because he's doing his best. He's just doing what he's given. He's just doing things based on what's in front of him. That being said, this character was fucking trash. This character was a cliche. This character was not funny. This character was the epitome of all of the unfunny comic relief cliches that everyone knows and loves, but really hates. Because it's so fucking tiring to see someone try so much and so hard to be funny and just fail so fucking hard at it. I don't understand why they thought it was a good idea to have a character who's always sticking a fucking microphone in people's faces, runs a podcast, and just runs his mouth more than anything else. What did he do? Oh, he electrocuted some mini Stay Puffs? What purpose does this fucking kid... Oh, okay, he remote controlled the ghost trap. on the RC car, which reminded me of something I saw in Home Alone 3. It's kind of a cool idea, but then when you think about it some more, you're like, how did they do that? There isn't a single scene that shows them taking the ghost trap and rearranging it and changing things around so it's an RC car. Just the next shot, they have a ghost trap that's now an RC car. And they also retrofitted the Ecto-1 with a ramp on the bottom. And of course the gunner seat, which I guarantee was never there until they messed with it or added something. But okay, you've got he drives the RC car. Okay, whoop-de-fucking-do. What else does this character have? Nothing other than unfunny comic relief that makes you die inside every time he opens his mouth. And then you've got the Burger Queen, Lucky, who's just there to be the love interest for Trevor. That's it. I don't remember her doing jack shit of anything. Maybe one or two things in the climax, but nothing that really stuck with me. So the writers didn't do these new Ghostbusters any favors either, because it's a bad idea to begin with, and then when it comes to writing these characters, they either have no depth, very little genuine charm, personality, or charisma, or they're annoying, or they're Mary Sue's. As much as I like Phoebe, as much as I root for that character, I don't really know if I'm rooting for the character. And because at the end of the day, maybe I'm rooting more for the actress. Maybe I like Mckenna Grace. Maybe that's what's going on. I like Mckenna Grace and her portrayal of this character, but the character overall is pretty meh. So there's not a single member of the new Ghostbusters that I love. That's not how you build a good foundation for a new franchise. That's not how you try to springboard into a new series of films. That's how you belly flop. So, weak foundation with a bad idea, weak characters in terms of the new Ghostbusters. You have other new characters that are equally as weak. You got Gary Gruberson, and what the fuck kind of name is that? So you got Gary Gruberson, the teacher, who you think is maybe going to be involved with the new Ghostbusters and help them out and bust some ghosts because it's Paul Rudd. No, he's just essentially scientist Louis Tully. That's really all he is, and that's really what he's there for. You have Phoebe and Trevor's mom, who's written in a way where she's just a fucking stone cold bitch throughout the movie in ways that are just really unlikable and hard to watch. I think they were trying to make it endearing or quirky or fun, but she just came across as bitchy and not in a good way. So just bitchy mom character gets on your nerves. I couldn't really tell much of a difference between her being possessed by Zool and her being herself, because she was such a demonic bitch to begin with most of the film. So when she says the stupid line, "There's no mom, there's only Zool," it's like, really wasn't much of a difference, because she was fucking raging and pissy beforehand. So you have a bitchy mom, you have a dumb scientist character who let the ghost out. And why is that a repeated thing? You know, that happened in the 2016 reboot. It was stupid then when Kristen Wiig's character let the ghost out of the ghost trap, and then and then in 2021 with Afterlife, we once again let the ghost out of the fucking ghost trap. So you took an element and copied it from the fucking reboots. You copied notes from the student who got an F on the F scale of fucking motherfucking fuck. God. Copied Ghostbusters 2016. Fuck. And speaking of copying, that's another problem with this script. It copies so much from the original film, from the 1984 movie. I love that film to death. It's in my top 5. But that doesn't mean that I wanted to see Gozer again. That doesn't mean that I wanted to see the Terror Dogs again. Or the Gatekeeper and the Keymaster shtick. I mean, come on now. You're just gonna give me the same fucking villains? Of all the fucking villains you could use from the real Ghostbusters or the comics, or just original characters, or gods from mythology from all over the world, you just give us Gozer again? Who still looks like it did in the 80s? I mean, they even had an opportunity to do something a little bit different by having Ivo Shandor, but Ivo Shandor is just there to show up, get reanimated, then get ripped in half. So that was fucking pointless. Why was he even there? So you had an opportunity for that, but nope, you blew that. And then, okay, we have the same fucking shit with Gozer and the Terror Dogs. You gotta have the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man again, but this time he's tiny because we need to sell toys and we need to really ingrain this little tiny cute Stay Puft into people's minds so they can buy the merchandise. And initially I was like, oh, that's kind of cute. And it honestly is pretty cute. But then like you think about it some more and you're like, well, this is just such a shallow advertising ploy. Like this is such a shallow attempt to mine nostalgia. Oh, look, hey, it's the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, but now it's cute and bite-sized, like the Pillsbury Doughboy. Go buy one for your kids. And it was kind of funny to see them commit harikiri and do all this other stuff, but you saw it all in the trailer. So that did not help. That you saw it all in the trailer. The best bits of that scene. And then you get to the original Ghostbusters. And I honestly don't know what's worse when it comes to these original cast members appearing in a Ghostbusters film after Ghostbusters 2. Whether it's the 2016 reboot when they were playing characters that weren't the same characters as the ones from the first 2 films. The reason, and you're probably, what do you mean you don't know what's worse? Here's why I don't know what's worse. Because them playing cameos of different characters that really have no connection to the franchise at all makes it so their bad portrayals and their lazy performances just come across as lazy performances. They don't come across as something that's that detrimental to the arc of these characters from from the first two films. Afterlife, on the other hand, it's pretty detrimental. It's pretty destructive to these characters. You have Ray saying things that he would never say in his fucking life, like Egon can go to hell, Egon can burn in hell. What? Ray would never say that. Ever. Never in a million fucking years would he ever say that. No matter what happened. It's so against everything that Ray is about, what he stands for. And then if that isn't bad enough, they broke up. They went their separate ways. They're not friends anymore. And that could work if you have a plot that focuses mostly on these original Ghostbusters reconnecting with one another after all these years and bonding and grieving over the loss of their friend Egon and then banding together one last time to save the world and kick some supernatural ass. Like, that might work if you took that approach. But by taking this approach where you just have an exposition dump from Ray on the phone, and then the three of them showing up for like 5 minutes in the climax, and then some after credits stuff, a fair amount of which is just needless fluff and fan service, then that approach doesn't work very well. In fact, it's kind of insulting, and I'm surprised more fans aren't upset when it comes to how the writing handled the original Ghostbusters. Ray acting out of character, Egon dying the way that he did. Like, I had an idea where Egon would die sacrificing himself. Not fucking off to a farm somewhere in the middle of nowhere, taking all the equipment, acting like an asshole. I would have had him get the original guys involved. They go to the mine because Egon has been keeping tabs on it and things are starting to really heat up over there. He's taken the time to tinker around and develop a new bit of technology, which is right up Egon's alley. It's so much a part of his character. So he built a mini ghost trap. He built a miniature ghost trap that he could use in an emergency, and took it with him because things were really starting to heat up at this mine. So he takes the guys with him. They go down there, and things get really bad. There's ghosts everywhere. There's some serious activity, and because of their age, they can't handle it. And in order to save his friends and in order to save the world from another apocalypse, he uses the ghost trap on himself and traps the ghosts inside the mine and sacrifices himself for the greater good. And this is why the original Ghostbusters are so reluctant to put on the proton packs again, to be around one another. That's why they had a falling out, because they're afraid. For the first time, these Ghostbusters are afraid of ghosts. And I think that'd be an interesting thing to work with. Them dealing with their fear of death. Them dealing with grief and loss. And then ultimately connecting again. And then maybe you would have Egon's spirit get involved in some way to help them move on and to help them overcome the new threat. But no, Egon just dies in a chair in the middle of fucking nowhere. And he shows up at the end in this film, and I'll get to that pretty soon. But it's just one of those things where you're like, really? That was it? After all this time, after waiting so long, after talking about how the original Ghostbusters are going to be in the movie, you did the exact fucking thing that I was dreading that you were going to do. You did the bare minimum. They were in it for barely any time at all. And it just feels like a waste. I know they're older. I know the longer hours and whatever. That's why you would have a lot of the film be focused on them having more dramatic scenes, having them deal with grief and loss, having them deal with fear, having them reconcile and just joke around with one another and have to deal with their own demons and team up and save the world. Go to a small town and just try to figure things out as quickly as they can while the clock is ticking. You don't have to make it this big giant spectacle for the entirety of the running time. You could have it be a serious down to earth drama with these characters that are beloved and provide more depth to them, give them more angles and certain things that you haven't seen them do before in this franchise, while also providing some laughs along the way, some tears, and some triumph. But instead, they show up for like 5 minutes, they cross the streams again, and it doesn't work because Gozer has figured it out or is wise to their tricks, or they just are a man short. Egon appears, helps them out alongside with his granddaughter, and they defeat Gozer again. But this time with a ghost trap, a giant ghost trap, which I will give this to the screenwriters. That was a cool idea. I liked that concept. It was different. It was actually one of the most different and unique things that this script added to this franchise, other than new, pretty poorly developed characters or a couple other bits of tech. Because other than that, it really didn't add a whole lot of new things to the film. It's the same Ecto-1, it's just more beat up and has some new additions. The same jumpsuits, which I didn't get that at all. Like, why did the kids wear the same ratty old jumpsuits? Wouldn't they, like, do their own and provide their own quirks to it or their own bits of personality to the suits? That might have been kind of cool to see. Nope. Same old ratty jumpsuits. And also, how the fuck did they fit these kids? Like, really, these were jumpsuits for grown-ass fucking men. Some of these men had a little bit of a paunch, had a little bit of a belly. Like, why weren't these kids, like, swimming around in those fucking suits? It's another reason why they should have just made their own suits. You can have the Ghostbusters logo on it. Why does it have to be the same jumpsuit? Provide them with something unique. Oh, I know why. Nostalgia. That's why. I mean, even the new Ghost that has the most screen time in Muncher is basically just a fatter version of Slimer. It's a fatter, bigger Slimer who eats metal instead of food and is colored blue. It's blue Slimer. Even that isn't that unique or different or original. I mean, even the minor ghost, you could say is just clearly trying to be the cab driver ghost from the original film. But this time it's a minor and not a random zombie who's driving a cab. So yeah, you had a couple new things that were thrown in there. Among debris or elements that were mostly junk or just the same fucking shit. And that's not even counting Gozer and the Terror Dogs. And then you have another aspect of the script that fails in spectacular fashion. The comedy. This is a comedy franchise. The first two films were, at the time, and in some ways still are, two of the most successful comedies ever when it comes to the box office. And this is a comedy that barely has any jokes. And the humor that is there is not funny. It elicits more groans than laughs or chuckles or smirks than anything else. And the stuff that made me laugh is honestly stuff that I don't think is going to make me laugh a second time. Like the unexpected scenes of Child's Play and Cujo. That made me laugh because it was so unexpected and random. But I don't think it's going to make me laugh the second time around because I'm going to see it coming and I know it's coming. So that spontaneity is gone. Successful comedy, good comedies that last a long time and still provide laughs consistently don't have spontaneous moments of humor that are just there for that one moment. And then you have other attempts at comedy that are just pathetic. Podcast and whatever his fucking shtick is. And then you've got Phoebe and her really bad jokes. And then even the original Ghostbusters, when they have their lines of dialogue, that was lame. That was fucking lame. Bill Murray, Venkman saying flat top. Because nostalgia. Because first movie. He said that line in the first movie. And then he goes on some shtick and tangent about how Gozer should have been with him. And they should have been dating. And to me, it just was a whiff. A big, epic whiff of an improv, of a line. And Dan Aykroyd's bit was predictable. Oh, Gozer's going to ask him if he's a god, and he's going to say yes this time. Just the majority of their lines were callbacks to the first movie. Just winks at the audience. And I just thought that was lazy. And ultimately wasn't really that funny or memorable. The worst line delivery, though, in the film is Pokem Woodbine when he says, "Who you gonna call?" Like, that was painfully bad. That was unbelievably cringe-inducing. I winced in the theater when that scene unfolded on the screen. I was just dumbfounded. I was like, really? I was just like, oh, that's bad. And that's really how I felt about a lot of the comedy. It's like, ugh, like that's a joke. That's supposed to be funny. The whole bits with Carrie Coon and Paul Rudd being awkward and weird when they're possessed by the terror dogs, trying to recreate the awkward chemistry of Sigourney Weaver and Rick Moranis. It didn't work. It was painful to watch as well. It was very, very bad. So, yeah, it doesn't even work as a comedy. And as a drama, it's all right, I guess. I mean, I like the stuff with Egon and his spirit guiding his granddaughter to discover his past and discover the truth. I like that. I like that bit. There's just some sweet moments there with Egon's spirit playing chess or Egon's spirit guiding the light around. to show her things. I like that. Honestly, I would have liked the film more if it just kept Egon in the background like that, instead of actually showing Egon as a full body apparition in the guise of Harold Ramis. And that ties into the climax, the finale, which was something that ultimately, at the end of the day, did affect me. It did get me. It brought multiple tears to my eye in the theater. But that's because the writers successfully manipulated me. And then afterwards, I felt like I was used. I really did. I felt like my fandom for this franchise and for Egon and for Harold Ramis was used. And honestly kind of abused. And then that pissed me off. Because I think it in a lot of ways is so wrong to take a man who is no longer around, who is dead, and resurrect him in such a fashion. And in such a manipulative fashion as well. I know they got permission from Harold's daughter and all of that, but that doesn't make it feel any less gross. Because, yeah, their heart was in the right place. Because I gotta be honest, I had that idea myself. That's why it affected me so much, is because seeing it happen on the screen is something that I had in my head for many, many years. And so seeing that unfold was something that I thought was awesome and was cool. Oh my God, that's exactly how I saw it happening in my head. But then I thought about it some more and I'm like, it's not really something that should have happened. Because when you have a film like Ghost that stars Patrick Swayze, and you have that scene where his character goes up into heaven, that's not actually meant to be Patrick Swayze in the context of him being dead by the time of that film's release, going up into heaven. So that's a lot different. That's a fictional character that's died, who just happens to be portrayed by Patrick Swayze, who is now no longer living. With Ghostbusters Afterlife, they took Egon's corpse and Harold Ramis's corpse and his likeness and just trotted it out on the big screen. And used it as a manipulative tool to cause audience members to weep and cry and lose their shit. And even though it worked once, it's something that at its core is just so fucking wrong. It should never have been done. And I just think it's so much more respectful and so much more strong, effective if you just didn't do that. A lot of us have already grieved for the loss of Harold Ramis at this point. We didn't need to have his corpse right there on the big screen in high definition. That really wasn't needed. And I would feel the same way if there was a film, it was like a biopic about Robin Williams. And some guy's playing Robin Williams, and by the end of the movie, there's this ghost of Robin Williams that shows up and waves, and smiles at the audience, and then floats off to Never Never Land. I would be like, that is fucked up. Why was that in the movie? You can have a send-off in a way that feels more respectful and doesn't feel like you turned Harold Ramis's corpse into a reason to print money and merchandising, because there is an exclusive action figure of Harold Ramis's character Egon's fucking ghost. His ghost. There's a toy of his fucking ghost. Harold Ramis is dead. May you rest in peace. But you didn't need to bring him back for this. It wasn't needed. It wasn't necessary. You could have still had him in the background. And you could have had like a moment at the end credits where there's like a picture of Harold with his family on the set of Ghostbusters, and then have like for Harold or something. You could have did something like that. You didn't have to have his ghost show up. And at the same time, when I think about it some more, it was so schmaltzy. It was so corny. It was so cheesy. I don't like using that word, but it really was. It was such a cheesy moment. Lifetime moment. So yeah, that was initially a positive, but then when I thought about it some more, it turned into a negative, and that's a big reason why the film just doesn't work for me structurally. That's why the script isn't really that good. It's a comedy, it's not funny. It's built on a really bad foundation based on a bad idea. The new characters, the new Ghostbusters, they're not written in ways that are engaging enough consistently. And on top of that, the different character traits for them and the moments of character depth are either non-existent, or what's there is pretty mediocre at best. And the performers aren't charismatic enough to make up for it. The action, when it is there, other than the bit with the Ecto-1 and Muncher, is lame. It's honestly pretty fucking shitty, especially the climax. You couldn't have it be a bigger, grander moment? The Ghostbusters reunite and they're on the big screen again, the original team, in a farmhouse in the middle of fucking nowhere, outside of a fucking cornfield? I mean, what the fuck? I mean, it was so stripped down and bare and cheap that honestly I expected the Children of the Corn to show up and out of the cornfield, and then the film would turn into a Children of the Corn sequel that would go direct to video. Like, what? So you have this weak climax. They have this really cool set of the mine and Shandor's shrine for Gozer, but they go away from that for some reason to a farmhouse. I know why they did it, because of the giant ghost trap, but you could have written things in a way where Egon set up the giant ghost trap in the shrine. Would have made sense to do it that way too, as an extra failsafe in case Gozer does come back and breaks the proton packs and the proton streams and makes it so you can't. So whatever Egon was doing to prevent the apocalypse doesn't break down. It could have had that as an extra failsafe. And if you were going to have Gozer again, like, have Gozer have a different form at least. Maybe have Gozer have different armor or something. Or have Gozer be male, or just you could just do something different. Why does Gozer have to look the same that Gozer did in the 1984 film? Oh yeah, because of nostalgia. That's why. What about these different spaces in the shrine for other entities that they talked about in the film? Why didn't we see those? Why didn't Gozer bring some of those from the other side to help fight the Ghostbusters? No, we don't even get that. We just get terror dogs again. And I'm sorry, that's terrible. That's terrible. and lazy and cheap. And then you've got the fan service, which it's just a nostalgia cum job. It's just jizzing nostalgia right into your eyeballs. And I'm sorry. I would like to actually see what's in front of me. I don't really want to have my eyes crusted with nostalgia jizz all the goddamn time. Gives a whole new meaning to the term "he slimed me." Because this film slimes you with nostalgia jizz at almost every fucking opportunity. Oh, look at the quotes from the Bible. That's the same quote that Ray you said from the book of Revelations in the first movie. Oh, we've got the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, but this time it's bite-sized. We've got Gozer, we've got the Terror Dogs, we've got the Gatekeeper, the Keymaster, we've got the Ecto-1, those proton packs. We've got the original Ghostbusters. We've got, instead of there's no Dana, there's no Mom, there's only Zool. We've got Who You Gonna Call. We got YouTube videos showing the old advertisement where the Ghostbusters are standing outside the firehouse saying, "We're ready to believe you." Got all of that. I'm sorry. It's just ridiculous. It's a ridiculous amount of nostalgia jizz. And that even comes to play in the end credits with the whole useless, stupid bit with Bill Murray and Sigourney Weaver, where Sigourney Weaver's character Dana Barrett has turned the tables on Venkman, experimenting with him with the electric shocks. Like, what the fuck? What even was the point of that? Nostalgia jizz! And then you get to the film's cast. This is a nice mix of different actors and actresses, but the same chemistry that was displayed in the original films is completely absent here. The new Ghostbusters, they honestly don't have much chemistry with each other at all. And they definitely don't have the same charisma and the same on-screen presence. And the new other characters that are thrown in there, portrayed by Carrie Coon and Paul Rudd. There were some moments with Paul Rudd and Carrie Coon where they had some kooky chemistry that I did like, but they kind of leaned in on it a little bit too much. So then that just kind of got a little bit too old eventually, especially when they became possessed by the Terror Dogs. And I don't really know if I can blame this cast, honestly, for a lot of the reasons why these characters don't really connect with me on the same level as the characters in the original first two films in the series. Because what they're given to work with of the script is relatively weak. That being said, I am going to say Mckenna Grace was the shining star here. I thought she did the best that she possibly could with what little she had to work with. I liked the performance more than I liked the character. And that's due to Mckenna Grace, and because she sold it and she tried her best. She tried so hard. She put her heart into this, and it definitely does show. Paul Rudd, I had some fun moments with him, but it's a very hit and miss performance, and I really do think that's more due to the script than anything else, because Paul Rudd is a very capable comedian and actor. I just don't think the script really gave him a lot of moments to shine. Carrie Coon played a good bitchy mom, so she did her job well, but didn't do it as well when she's trying to step out of that role, or it just felt like it was this Jekyll and Hyde kind of thing, where she would be this bitchy mom and then she would be this quirky character with Paul Rudd. And I don't know if that was really a good juxtaposition of character traits. So it's one of those things where I don't know if it's really her fault, but it did seem like there's a lot of divisiveness with the performance. Logan Kim, I don't have anything against this kid. I don't think he has really much on screen presence or charisma. Uh, but then again, what he was given was absolute dog shit, terror dog shit. It was terrible terror dog shit. So I'm not gonna be too hard on him. Uh, Celeste O'Connor, what even was there to fucking say about this character? She was trying to be. I think they were trying to make her kind of the Venkman because she's sarcastic and has a certain spunk to her, but it just came across as forced and unearned. And I didn't think she had an ounce of chemistry with anyone in the cast. Another thing that maybe it's not really her fault, but also maybe it's just not really the best casting choice. That could be another thing. Uh, Maybe it's an instance where this character just needs more room to grow or needs more growth period going forward. And maybe she'll be able to make it work, but I don't know. It just got a lot of supporting role in a Netflix TV series vibes from this performance. And by supporting role, I mean like the fifth or sixth member in an ensemble cast. And Finn Wolfhard, speaking of ensemble casts, I like Stranger Things. Season 1 is one of my favorite television shows, period. But he's playing the same character in everything right now. And it's just not working anymore. It's just the magic is gone. It's just not there. The spark isn't there. It's non-existent. So I really wasn't that impressed with his performance. I honestly came across as pretty flat and bored. Seemed like he was really bored throughout most of the movie. Probably because he didn't have much to do other than drive to Ecto 1. So I don't know if I can really blame him. And then you've got Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson, Annie Potts. I love a lot of those actors and actresses. They're a big part of why Ghostbusters 1 and 2 are as good as they are. But I did feel that some of their performances here were tired, and it just felt like the same energy wasn't there. And it could be the script. I think especially when it comes to Dan Aykroyd, there's a reason why the performance comes across so strained when it comes to the scenes where he's talking about Egon and he's saying that Egon Spengler can burn in hell. Like, it just doesn't work, and you can tell that Dan is very conflicted about it with the performance, so his heart isn't in it. So it comes across as a very weak moment of acting and line delivery because he just cannot believably or authentically deliver a line like that. Sigourney Weaver, her bit's just some lame joke, so I mean, there's really not much to say about that. Bill Murray trying, still has that charm, still has that wiry snark that you love about him, but he's only on the screen for a very little amount of time, so really not much he can do. Ernie Hudson has a I would say he has a few more scenes. Had a good scene in the after credits talking about the future of Ghostbusters and so on. He bought the firehouse, and so or the firehouse is no longer there. It's a Starbucks, which I completely mind wiped that thing for a good reason because that's just disrespectful and lame. But hey, did fine with this bit. Annie Potts did fine too, but I don't know why she wasn't Egon's wife. Why not? They seem to have a good relationship in the first film, but whatever. Pokem Woodbine, I mean, he's in it for like maybe 2 or 3 scenes, and the best impression, well, not really the best. The only impression you get from him is that awful line delivery of who you're gonna call. But I don't think any actor was gonna pull that off. So I'm not gonna give him too much shit. J.K. Simmons, he played Ivo Jandor in a blink and you miss a cameo, and then you got Olivia Wilde who played Gozer. And she did a good job having the same mannerisms and intensity as the original actress who played Gozer in the 1984 film. But yeah, it's a cast that's just very mediocre, very middling. There were a few stalwarts, but a lot of duds. A lot of duds. And even the original cast members, when they have their scenes, you do get this vibe of it was shot in a day. And it just doesn't have that same magic, that same lightning in a bottle energy that the scenes with those characters had, or those actors had, in the first 2 films of the franchise. I know I spent like almost an hour just talking about the film's script, but that, like I said, that is where most of the film's issues lie to me, is with the script. Because there are other aspects of this film's production that are pretty competent, pretty skilled, pretty decent. The visual effects are fine for the lower budget, although there are some moments where it looks a little cheap. It looks a little lame. Definitely doesn't have the same polished look to it as the first 2 films in the series. It's kind of crazy that 2 films from the 80s at points had better effects, at least better visual effects, than a film from 2021. Especially the proton packs, the proton streams. There's some other visual effects, some CGI though, that I thought was really well done. The bits where Gozer is reconstructing itself, I thought that was a really well done, pretty awesome looking effect. The mini Stay Puffs look pretty good as well. I will give the film some credit as well for doing a lot of things practically, from the props down to even the terror dogs. Most of the scenes with the terror dogs are practical, and they are a sight to behold. Those scenes prove that practical makeup effects are still better than CGI. Who would have thunk it, huh? So that was nice to see. It was nice to see practical effects again, especially when it comes to the terror dogs. They just looked absolutely spectacular in IMAX. Incredible. Honestly, the terror dogs never looked better in terms of the makeup effects and so on. And then you have, like I said, some competent, skilled other aspects of the production, with the cinematography by Eric Steelberg, the editing by Dana E. Globerman and Nathan Orloff. Like a lot of the other technical aspects of this film, they're pretty good. They're not amazing, they're not jaw-dropping, but they're pretty good and they're pretty consistent, and they're definitely more solid than the script or the direction. The score, on the other hand, another instance of too much nostalgia jizz. I mean, the nostalgia jizz with the score now, because almost every note is just the same score from the first movie. With really not a lot of remixing either. So that really didn't do anything for me. If I want to hear Elmer Bernstein's score, I will just listen to Elmer Bernstein's score. For as much crap as people give Ghostbusters 2, that at least had its own score. And it was a good score too. And it fit the film well. And I wish that this film put more of an effort into creating a new score to fit the film, just like Ghostbusters 2 did, that still maintains the same spirit of the franchise. But no, we just get the same old shit. And for a film that's 124 minutes long, there are definitely some moments where it drags, where it spins its wheels, it peters out, because the new characters are not consistently engaging or likable enough outside of maybe Phoebe. And the original Ghostbusters that are not in it a lot. There's not a lot of moments with them. And the moments that you do get are honestly either bittersweet or a letdown. Which honestly fits the film. Like, it's fitting that those moments are bittersweet and disappointing, because at the end of the day, that's what Afterlife is. It's a bittersweet and disappointing film that leaves a bad aftertaste in your mouth. Because it's been full of so much nostalgia jizz. So, I don't really know what else to say about Afterlife. This is probably an hour or more than that. And all I gotta say is, if you made it all the way through to the end, I'm gonna give you a personal applause. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for toughing it out and joining me on this journey of getting all this Ghostbusters stuff out of my basement, because this film, it's not a good movie. It's not a terrible film. I like some elements of it. I think if there were more scenes with the original Ghostbusters and the focus is more on them, and this was more of a send-off to them and to Egon, I think this would be more effective. Even if you had Gozer still, if you had Gozer taking on a different form, if you had Ivo Shandor doing something instead of just being there for a blink and you miss a cameo, then I think some things could work. If you're still going to use Gozer and the Terror Dogs. Also, I would have thrown in some new entities alongside Gozer and the Terror Dogs, so you have some unique stuff. You have some of the same, some of the familiar, but you also have some new things. And for all the shit that Ghostbusters 2 gets for being the same film as the first movie, it's more of its own thing than this movie is. And speaking of Ghostbusters 2, there's barely any reference to that one, other than Ray's bookshop. And I hope to fucking God the rumors are not true, that they are looking forward, or they are going to bring back Vigo for the sequel to this movie. Because I do not want this to be repeated again. I don't want this franchise to continue to recycle nostalgia. I don't want it to be a whole new term for ghostbusting. I don't want that. I really don't. The ghost is the nostalgia jizz that's busting in your face because it's white. I don't want that to be the future of this franchise. So if you're gonna do another one, then do something different. Do something unique. Don't have the original Ghostbusters in it that much at all. Flesh out these new Ghostbusters, make them strong characters that are on the same level as the original cast. You can't carry the torch to characters that are massively inferior to the characters that they are supposed to be taking over from. So it's just one of those things we're just going to have to wait and see, because the sequel is inevitable. It's happening. Sony had another chance to make up for the error of their ways with the 2016 reboot that busted my balls and pretty much everyone else's balls. And instead, they blew it! They fucking blew it! They blew it on a cheap, lazy, nostalgia come job in your fucking face. They blew it.